nature every day. I forced myself to do it. It was the best thing that I've ever done, and it got me back. It was the smallest thing that I was like, I promised myself I'll do this every day, and it got me back on track, and it made me come out of this sort of self cycle of like overthinking and making things feel very like claustrophobic.
If you've ever wanted to understand why we should be asking for nature's help on mindsets, adventure, and more, then you're in the right place. So, welcome to Maximise Nature. Today's guests are the host of the London Escape Club, Gemma and Sandro. Whenever they have a moment to spare, their desire is to escape the hustle and bustle of London city life. If you have ever wanted to know why it's so important to live a balanced life between the 9 to 5 and the outdoors, then this is the perfect episode for you. We're going to explore with them what happens if you take the opportunity to escape the city life and delve into the outdoors. Then we can take the good thoughts and put them in a travel bag, ready to use in our next adventure. So with that, here is the Maximise Nature Podcast. Thank you guys for coming on the episode today. I really appreciate it. If you two were out on the countryside and struck up a conversation with a stranger, how would you introduce yourself?
Hey Max, thank you so much for having us. We're excited to be here. So I'm Gemma.
And I'm Sandro.
And if we met someone out and about, we'd probably just say that we're trying to reconnect ourselves with what we enjoy, I think, and our kind of love of nature and our love of adventure and our love of being challenged, and also kind of having our egos, I guess, put in check and our kind of perspectives put in check through nature.
Being there, yeah.
Yeah. And that we try and get out, explore different walks that are close to London, try not to make it too overwhelming, then share that with people so that they're able to do it and make it more accessible and less kind of overwhelming, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it can be really stressful to even try and organise something like a hike or just any mini outdoor adventure. Like, you do have to just go outside and it will come to you. Just let nature come to you, I guess.
So I was just saying, and it doesn't have to be like, a big adventure. It can just be going to look at something in your nearest park, depending on the season. We're so lucky that we have very clear seasons in the UK. Yeah.
I think it would really depend on, I know it sounds quite strange, but perhaps what they're wearing. Obviously, to see who's going out on a dog walk or someone who's out for a hike, mainly by fashion choices and what they have with them.
Why do you think that people need to head beyond their front doors and get out into the outdoors more often?
That's a good question. City life, post-COVID life, everyone working from home, the outdoors probably seems quite daunting now because leaving the house isn't as necessary as it used to be when you had to go to a certain workplace. And I think maybe that's had knock-on effects of actually people going outdoors maybe. So even probably just the small tasks of doing errands like going shopping and stuff might be daunting. So the point of even going outdoors to maybe find some release in nature might be a bit of an issue, perhaps.
I think, it can be as simple as like the circadian rhythms, right? Like getting out first thing in the morning is really good for your sleep patterns. Also, being with nature, like I said, like being under a massive tree or heading out on a hike and then the weather just going completely in the wrong direction and then you're up a really exposed crag and you're just being blown around and having to be incredibly present. I think it's just really important that people reconnect with that, because I think everyone's so comfortable in their own homes that actually we're not being pushed and we're not being challenged so much, and we're not being reminded of our own existence within the spaces that we live. If that makes sense?
Yeah, it makes complete sense. Like, you're sort of in your own comfort bubble, and it's often really, really good to get out of it. Sort of, and just explore more than what you're used to. What are some of the challenges you have faced when trying to convince yourself or someone else to get out the house and outside?
To get the right gear. I think we were talking about this earlier, right? So getting the correct gear. The weather in the UK is so
horrible, isn't
not
it?
what it's ever. Yeah, and never what it says on when you're looking on the weather apps, and it always is different. And whether that is like layering up correctly, even just like having sunscreen, like little things like that. I think weather is the main thing in the UK. And then I think the challenges are, I think a lot of people are getting intimidated by stuff on the internet where it's like it has to be all or nothing. So, you know, like, oh, if I'm going outside, then I've got to be climbing a mountain, or like, you know, wild camping in the middle of nowhere, and you're using a water purifier and all this equipment and stuff, when actually, you know, some hikes for us are big and some, like today, are just a half an hour hike or a 45-minute hike. And I think people really struggle with that. And also, like I said earlier, I think just going into a park as well, like this year has been really damp, so there's been loads of really amazing mushrooms and lichen and stuff like that. And so I think the challenge is it's overwhelming. The weather can be crap.
What's the biggest challenge? Is probably laziness, in all honesty. I mean, coming from someone who used to love being outdoors all the time and then stepping away from it and then coming back into it, stepping out your comfort zone would probably be my challenge. And not in a sense of like doing a small hike is out of my comfort zone, but being comfortable sat at home. I can sometimes find it to be a challenge to actually just find the energy to leave, although I have it. Sometimes I just can't be bothered.
Yeah.
But for no reason other than the fact that there just isn't a reason. It's easy to stay at home, you know?
Yeah, we're given very nice things in our places that we live now, aren't we? So it's like, but also it's never as nourishing as when you are in nature. I think the challenge is reminding yourself maybe that
it's worth it.
It's worth it. It's like exercise. When you leave, you're like, I hate this. I never want to do this. And then you come back and you're like, that was amazing. I feel so good.
Honestly, the amount of times that's happened to me, ridiculous. Like, I've been sitting on my sofa, probably, to be honest, doom scrolling, doing nothing important. And then I come off it and I'm like, I've got a headache now. So I can either do more doom scrolling or get outside. And more often than not, when I go outside and come back, like you were saying, the energy levels are just way higher than what they would be if I was just sat doing that all the time. Has there ever been a time where you've had a problem that you can't figure out a solution for and then stepped away from it, like you were saying, going out outdoors, and then coming back and the idea or the solution popping back into your head, if that makes sense? My
best creative thinking comes from walking. I have done EMDR therapy, which is cross movement. What is it? EMDR, eye movement desensitization reprogramming. So it's like this cross movement, and it came from a woman that would go out on walks in nature, and it would help stream of consciousness thinking and being able to just think from your subconscious. If I'm creatively stuck in my acting career, or when I'm writing, or I'm doing anything that involves having to get that kind of creative flow, I think, like, you know, like how sports players have, if I'm stuck in a house, like in there, like I'm in, like, you know, in COVID, when we would just see the same thing every day, and a lot of people were really struggling to find that creative inspiration. I feel if I go out into nature, it comes so organically. Like, I'll be walking, I'll get into a rhythm, and then you're being fed new, exciting things all the time. It leads you to be curious, which is where creativity is found. It makes you look around and sort of witness things from a different perspective as well, and try and, if you get lost, you have to be creative and think your way out of a problem. It helps with problem solution, like solving. There's so many things that, like, just getting out in nature or having an adventure in itself can, like, bring. And I think there's been several times when I've been stuck creatively and I've gone, you know what, I'm just going to go for a walk, and I've come back, and it hasn't necessarily been the solution that I wanted it to be, but it's been a solution. It's been it's like a problem that I've solved. Yeah.
Mine's going to be completely different. I think we've both had challenges when putting up our campsite, I think. And A, probably bad weather. B, probably because we haven't been on the same wavelength when putting up camping equipment, where we're both on different steps. But I think maybe we've stopped, we've had food, we've had a break, maybe we've chatted some things through, and then quickly realised how to perhaps find a solution to the end goal of what we wanted. And when we went camping in...
Yeah, it was this place called Pegs and Pitches. I think that's problem solution, like that's problem finding when we're out camping.
Yeah.
So then we stop and we kind of reassess and step away from the issue to come back. But I think what Max is saying is like, have we ever had a problem, or you can correct me here, Max, but have we ever had a problem in our day-to-day lives and then used going out for a walk or going into nature to then reassess that issue, then coming back to the problem?
So yeah, no, it's a little bit of both, really, isn't it? Because you'll have problems outside, you'll have problems sort of in the 9 to 5, as it were, and I think it's just a way to clear your head, and I can't really think of a better way than just stepping away from it, going and doing something else, preferably outside, and then coming back to it. So I think you're both right, to be honest.
Nice.
Yeah.
Why do you think so many people struggle to get outdoors, like we were referring to earlier? And is it actually really easy to escape into nature?
Well, there was an article that came out right recently that said that natural spaces, especially in big built-up cities, are actually a privilege. And it is hard for a lot of people who are in big cities and big built-up areas who work, 6-7 days a week just to put food on the table for their families and are really, really busy. And then the children are running around and they're trying to get them to get out in nature. It can be really difficult. But I do think that in London, we're so lucky that we get actually a lot of green spaces, because if some of the spaces that we go to, you do need to drive. Yes, you can get there by trains, but there's more funds that you have to pay. Like, so you're getting a train and then you're getting a bus. So that the accessibility of that actually gets removed for people who don't have that excess money to then go and do that. But in London, we do have spaces that you can get to and walk to, which we are very lucky. But I do think one of the big challenges for like people who live in the city is going out and getting the right public transport to the right place, being able to afford it. And then if they do make a mistake or something happens, then being able to afford other things and like emergency things like food and kit and stuff. So I think the challenges are, making sure that you're being safe and prepared. But that does cost money sometimes. So I think that is actually a big challenge. And I do think there is some privileges in being able to get out in nature. But if you're already in the countryside, I mean, if you grew up and you live in the middle of nowhere, you're kind of, I think the challenge then is like you see it every day and you do take it for granted, and then you're exactly all constantly wanting to go in the city.
I think you touched on it earlier, essentially. If you are struggling to escape, you are probably sat watching, or maybe not, watching a lot of social media, and you're seeing that these people are escaping and doing it to like an expert manner where they have Pandora, and maybe people live near the Lake District, the Peak District, or anything like that. And they probably deem it that they can't do these things because they're not sponsored by brands, or that they can't do it to the max that perhaps these people on social media are doing it. And I think maybe the thought of not being able to do something to what they perceive being the outdoors on their screen probably instantly talks them out of going outdoors. I easily talk myself out of doing things going outdoors, weirdly enough. I don't know how or why I do that, but I can imagine if you're not someone who likes to escape and they want to, and they're scrolling and they're seeing social media people doing these crazy things, and they seem this like
self-sabotage.
They instantly self-sabotage themselves, and they don't go for the 10-minute public footpath walk that's near them, or they don't plan. Don't go on all trails and see if there's something that is within walking distance or public transport. They already sabotage themselves and do it.
And also they don't have a friend to do it. I think that's another thing, is like people don't want to do it alone. I understand why like women or non-binary or trans people might not want to go out. There's safety issues sometimes with those kind of things. And if you don't have a friend to go out with, you might just be like, well, what's the point? I don't want to do it on my own.
It might not be safe.
Yeah, and it might be quite overwhelming. And people don't like doing things on their own, which I really recommend to do things on your own, because it's actually really fun and more rewarding sometimes. You're right, Sandra, in the sense that we're actually fighting these like dopamine machines. Like I know I'm using it as a microphone right now, but my phone is just like it kind of like has a hold all these sort of technology, and we've got endless streaming platforms.
We're being told to stay indoors.
Yeah, we're being told to stay on your phone, stay indoors. I mean, we're driven by a capitalist culture, aren't we? Where it's just like stay indoors, go and do things where you're spending money. But nature is, I did say it does have a cost to it sometimes, but if you have it on your doorstep or you have a park nearby you, it is free. Like walking is free. And I think the other thing is people might not think that it's cool enough or whatever, like, oh, because it doesn't cost money, maybe it's not cool, or maybe it's not seen to be something as desirable because it hasn't price tag on it, where everyone then is like, you know, competing to show off the coolest thing they have, the most expensive thing they have. Whereas, so people might be like, oh, well, it's not worth my time or money because it's not costing money. It's a weird sort of dynamic and place that we're in, I think, in the world right now, when it's like how beautiful and how available it is, you know, if you plan and prepare well.
Why is the outdoors so accessible for anyone, no matter what their interests and hobbies are?
I think we kind of touched on this, didn't we? What I love about London is that nature really fights back, and you just need to hear it. You just need to, like, be present. So, like, when I wake up in the morning, we live sort of southeast London, and like this morning, there's 2 foxes playing in the back garden. Yes, foxes in London are street foxes, so they've got a little bit more of a bite to them. But then, like, yeah, they've got a South London accent. But then I could hear a woodpecker. I went to my local park where there's a tiny pond, herons flying around, and, you know, and like I said, I saw some mushrooms. I saw near my mum's house, there are these wildflowers that she had, like a really beautiful wildflower in a pot. And it's obviously during a whole year and a season, the seeds have like somehow moved onto like a bit down the road. And it's these beautiful purple and yellow flowers. And you just see them pop up every year. And it's winter right now and they're out. And you're just like, it just is amazing to see in London when you have like trees as well fighting back tarmac. And I think no matter what your hobbies are, you can always relate also nature back to you and your life. So like being in the city life, you see nature everywhere, and you can reflect it back into your life by looking at it, seeing the foxes, you know, surviving for their life but still having fun and playing. I just think whatever you do, you can use nature as a mirror to make you reflect on your life more, and also to allow your own life and whatever you do, whether that be a doctor, finance, to breathe. Because at the end of the day, you're a human being, and nature allows you to have that space. It doesn't judge you. It doesn't kind of put any pressure on you. It just lets you be present. And then from that place, you're then able to kind of reconnect with yourself and then do the things that you want to do.
Outdoors is accessible. I think we're firmly whacking just being outdoors having to be a hobby. You could just enjoy having the outdoors, using it for some sort of exercise. It doesn't need to be like a keen hobby of yours that you use it 5-6 days a week. It doesn't need to become obsessive. Maybe the thought of having an outdoor lifestyle being a hobby might be daunting due to that piece. The outdoors is very accessible. You might just go for runs around your local park. That you might not deem it as being a hobby, but it's still going outdoors.
Yeah, I guess for us, a dog walk is a chore at the end of the day, isn't it? I mean, I love it, and I wouldn't call it a chore, but I mean, some people might call it a chore, but in doing that, you are going outside.
And it's not a hobby, is it?
And it's not a hobby. You had kids, you know, taking your kids to the park. The way a kid sees a leaf is like your friend on mushrooms at university. It's kind of amazing to watch. Wonder and amazement that you see when a kid just picks up a leaf. Yeah. Like my niece, when she sees nature, I'm like, wow, it is cool. Like, look at all the details. And yeah, like this tree, you know, like a sequoia. Like I remember when Sandro showed me these massive sequoias, and he was like, their bark feels all squishy. And I was like, oh my gosh, I've never actually thought about that. It's just, you know, these little things, like, and you could just be walking through London, or on a tree, there's a weird mushroom, and you're like, hey, that's odd. Like, it just makes you stop, doesn't it?
I also think what you two were touching on there with we're going outside and we might not even think it's like a hobby. I certainly wouldn't call my walk to work a hobby. Like, I've got to be real. Nah. That's just how I get from A to B. But if it involves the outdoors, then great. Like, the fact that so many people are walking to work, are actually heading outside just to live their 9 to 5 and earn money, they're technically already doing, or like being an outdoor enthusiast without even realising. other than having walking and going in the outdoors as a hobby and as like an escape, why is the outdoors the best place to be, and how has it helped you in the past?
I used to be an arborist, and the lack of a better word, that's a fancy word for a tree surgeon. I used it as like therapeutic exercise. As much as my job was actually quite a lot of mass destruction, I did plant hundreds of thousands of trees. So albeit that there was some destruction, I did replace a lot of the UK's green spaces. I'm getting the best of both worlds. I was getting to go to work. I was getting to be outdoors. I was working with nature. I sometimes really miss it, but then also don't miss getting wet. It was great. I think maybe that's why I've gone back to being in the outdoors. Like I haven't climbed a tree in maybe the best part of 2 years. And as much as I sometimes struggle to go outdoors or I feel lazy, I sometimes look back and think, God, I did really enjoy being outdoors. Why am I shutting down the door and just going out for this hour walk with Gemma? Why am I doing that? Because 2 years old, that version of me would have just said, yeah, let's go do that right now. Do you know what I mean?
I just love being outdoors. I love I love getting even though it's not practical sometimes, but I love the mud, I love the rain, I love
the stress.
It's because I'm neurodivergent, I'm autistic and ADHD, which both fight against each other. I need routine and I also need sort of like novelty and new things, and the outdoors gives me the novelty of new things without overstimulating the autistic side of my nervous system and overwhelming me. And I just think it has that balance so well. And I said to you today, I was like, it's kind of like my church. Like I love it. It just balances everything that I need. I need a weird bird to come fly over us, or a gust of wind to throw me against a rock, and now I've got a cut on my knee. But it's not the end of the world because we're not climbing up mountains, because we've both had big surgery where we realise how precious life is. It kind of gives me the best of the both worlds, and I think it does for you too. Like it's exciting enough without being overwhelming in a constantly overstimulating world, but at the same time there's routine, and it is also predictable in many ways, and it's just not tipping us over the edge for all of the things that we kind of need to nourish us. You said sort of like, when has it helped us in the past? I think, as a couple, obviously you're going to have spats sometimes. And sometimes we're like, in the middle of a spat, it's been busy weeks, we're both tired. We get out into nature and we overcome something together, or we have to problem solve together, or we just go out and we're silent and we just enjoy something together, and something beautiful will run past us. Or like today, like a weaselly thing like ran across the road, and we were like, what is that? And it just sort of puts our attention elsewhere and reminds us like, oh, it's bigger than us, everything is bigger than us, we are actually just here existing side by side, witnessing things together, enjoying things together, having different opinions on one thing together, and that's safe and it's fine. The one thing I've done in the past when life has got really overwhelming and family got very ill, like deaths in family and other things were going on, and I hit a rock bottom, a walk in nature every day. I forced myself to do it. It was the best thing that I've ever done, and it got me back. It was the smallest thing that I was like, I promised myself I'll do this every day, and it got me back on track. And it made me come out of this sort of self cycle of like overthinking and making things feel very like claustrophobic. So yeah.
No, that might be, out of all the people I've interviewed, that might be the best answer. I'm not joking at all. Like, you genuinely hit the nail on the head. As someone who has a faith and has issues as well, it's really nice to hear that, and I'm sure for those listening it will be lovely as well. But I think the key with both the faith and outdoors is it provides that balance. And I think I know everyone went through a hell of a lot during 2020 and even onwards. I think just getting outdoors and getting a routine that means you're getting out of like your own headspace is really, really key. And I think nature is like a true reflection of ourselves. And I don't think that without it, we will survive, because it's just done if we don't have it even on our doorstep.
It reminds us to look after it, right? Like you said, we'll be done without it. We got to look after it. And if you don't experience it, you don't appreciate or have empathy or respect it. So totally agree.
I tried my best.
You did.
I can't enough. Someone else do it.
Are you two up for a game of Sweet Truth? This is in
Oh, what's
question as
that?
well.
Explain the rules.
So I'm so glad you asked. You need to tell me 3 things: 1 truth and 2 falsehoods about an outdoor experience. Either I get the sweet victory, pun intended, of picking the truth, or you get the sweet victory of persuading me to pick a falsehood. Are you ready to play?
We were camping in this campsite. We won't name where it is. We got chased by a wasp. The wasp was really aggressive, and it was really funny because with Sandro, he was like, "It's just a wasp, ignore it," until it started chasing him. And this wasp did not give up, and it just chased Sandro, and it chased me. And we tried to put the tent up with this wasp, and it was just one wasp, and it was out to get us. And then finally, we were like, "We're gonna eat." And obviously the wasp is still around. We're trying to be calm about it because we're trying to live out with nature, and it's just one wasp. But then it gets more and more and more aggressive, and we're running away. And I was trying to make s'mores, and I ran away, and I tripped on a guide rope, and the s'more, which is melted marshmallow, went straight into my hair, and it took me about 3 or 4 days to get the full marshmallow out of my hair after that. There was one where we were at a campsite, which was one of our first times camping. There was camper vans opposite us, and then we were camping on a hill, and it was a really nice day. It was the end of summer, and Sandro was fast asleep snoring, and a man comes past, and Sandro rips the biggest fart, and the man just chuckles to himself, and I'm wide awake. and I can hear him laughing, and then he goes to the toilet, and then he comes back, and then he chuckles to himself on the way back. When we were camping in this sort of wild camping place, and we pitched our tent in this the biggest storm. I think it had a name, the ones that have names where they were actually quite bad, and it was 37 miles, 37 kilometers per hour, sideways rain. And we put the tent up, and it was just it felt like we were in an ocean. It was so loud. But we're also both quite stubborn. And once we were in the tent, we were like, well, we're not leaving. We're going to just sit this out. And anyway, the tent starts moving, and we're sort of sliding. We're on a hill anyway, because it's called the valley. It's a valley. It's sold on its valley view. So obviously when you're in a valley, you're on on a side in a wind tunnel. Anyway, we started sliding down this hill, and because when you slide in a tent, obviously you start rolling over each other. And then we decided to just pack up, but only a bit. And then we slept with the tarp pinned down over the top of us. And because we were that stubborn, we didn't want to leave. So we just pinned the tarp down on top of us and just lay flat. And there was just nowhere to sit up unless one of us rolled out of the tent and then unplugged the tents.
Bit of a nightmare, actually.
Bit of a nightmare.
What's the first one?
That's cheating.
Wasp.
What's the third one?
What's called tarp thing on top of us, and windy.
Let me guess. What was the second one?
Sandro's fart. Sandro's killer fart.
Yeah, the family campsite.
In a family campsite.
Yeah, I'm going to go with that one as the truth.
No, it's false. It's the wasp.
No.
The wasp is true. But Sandro did snore really loudly, and it was a continuous
So it's semi-true.
It's semi-true, but he didn't fart.
It was snoring.
If there is one piece of advice, apart from stay away from wasps, that someone reluctant to head outdoors would need, what would it be and why?
I think maybe, I might go on a bit of a tangent, maybe you have friends, male or female, that you tend to meet up socially for drinks or food or shopping. I'm mainly targeting those people in London because we live here. That's relatable. Why don't you just ask them, maybe let's go for a walk or a hike or something? How about we go, maybe still within the M25, but let's change the notion of meeting up and drinking alcohol or going to parties or clubs, going out for food or going shopping. I'm not saying if they want to go for a walk, because they might be desperate to do that with you anyway, but they think they've got to keep up with you or vice versa. How about you just maybe introduce the outdoor activity instead of the sociable drink or parties or food or whatever it may be. Maybe change the notion of how you meet up with your friends. Because you might not know, they might say yes.
Yeah. Just be prepared. I think, not being prepared when you do it once and say you get rained on and you've not got the right raincoat and you've not got the right shoes, that can put a downer on anyone's day. But I really agree with you. I think your answer's a really good one. Like, there is this, like, keeping up with the Joneses of everyone goes out and everyone drinks. And I mean, like, we're in our 30s now and people are still doing the same old routine, right? And that's fine every once in a while, but A, it drains your bank account. B, no one feels great after it. And C, you're much more likely to have a good conversation with someone on a walk and learn something new about that person, or like make the bond a bit deeper, or have more of an experience.
Or perhaps find out you don't like them at all.
So yeah, maybe you'll find out you don't like them, and that was your farewell walk. But actually, it's quite a nice way to say goodbye to someone on a walk.
Clear purposes.
Yeah, I mean, Marina Abramovich did it on the Great Wall of China, right? She and her boyfriend, they started on either sides, and then they met in the middle, and they were like, "This is it. This is the end," and they never saw each other again until the exhibition. Yeah, I mean, we're not condoning that, because we're trying to get people outdoors, but also, yeah.
Maybe just swap the pub for a walk.
Yeah. Or if you're desperate to go to the pub, do a walk and then end up in the pub.
I think the key there, I'm again not condoning drinking because it's a long day if you do that a lot. I think the key you were saying there was communication with the outdoors is so key. Being outside and really like you were saying, getting to know each other is key to building relationships, and building a future with the outdoors is also vital. And I think it all stems through everything we've been talking about today. When you were escaping the city, what was one moment or viewpoint out in nature that has stuck with you to this day?
A viewpoint that's stuck?
Or a memory? We went to New Forest maybe, how many months ago? Maybe 18 months ago, we went to New Forest. And I took you to see those two tall trees called the sequoias. New Forest called the tall trees. And they're two sequoias that are like parallel to each other, like they're almost identical. They're like twins. 180 foot maybe. They're massive. It's like a bridge, isn't it? From the ground to like atmosphere, don't you think? If you think of them. And like the sheer width of them, indescribable. They're ginormous. They're like maybe 15 people wide if you're all holding hands. Look at those trees. They're probably, north of 400 or 500 years old, and seeing those trees touching their bark, like Gemma said earlier, pod to their bark's almost like skin-like. It's very, if you were to touch a person's arm, the sequoia's skin is just much like that. And to think that they're just big humans, like they've been here for 500 years, they're absolutely massively ginormous, and whatever's going on in life isn't happening for all. Like, look at these amazing trees that have been here for so long. That was quite a nice moment to share with you. Because I spent a lot of time there growing up and to show these trees.
And as much as you've chopped down trees, you also have a real appreciation for them, which is actually, we bonded as when we first started dating over. Sandro and me would walk around and he would go, "What tree is that?" And I'd be like, "I don't know." And then he would tell me the tree. Well, sometimes it became quite like a test, which was really stressful when he already told you the tree. To start with, really lovely, and you tell me the attributes of that tree, and even now I'll be like, "What's that tree?" Or "Can you tell me what the process of that?" Because you had to go to college and you had to learn about it, and also why we do pruning, and why we have to take care of the trees. I think that's a really lovely connection that we had over that. For me, it's always the sea. I'm such a big fan of water. And I think we had a lovely walk in Burgau in Portugal, where it feels like you're on the edge of the world. And we also recently went to Devon, and there it felt, because it was so windy, it felt like, you were thrown back to prehistoric years, and you feel, because the vastness of the ocean in front of you and the land that you're on, there's an appreciation, and it just feels so out of your control and so epic. And I think the viewpoint of that is just, again, it's this grounding to self of I am so small in a world that's so much bigger than me, and I can have no ego when everything else has to continue moving on, and there's the cycles that they move on in, and the way that they just keep going, and you will come and go on this planet, and you will come and go in this nature, and you'll someone else will be walking here tomorrow. And I think the viewpoint of that is just everything just keeps moving on in a way that's organic and natural, And you can either choose to be present and be a part of it, or you can just, it's that St. Augustine, like, philosopher theory of the river and the theory of time. But like, you can either be the river, you can either stand in the river and watch time go past you, or you can stand on the edge of the river and watch the river. Perspective, like you said right at the start of this podcast, I think was such a wonderful thing, you know, this having, you can do different things and be in different spots and have a different perspective. And you're always reminded of your place in that when you're out in nature. And I think the ocean, where land meets the ocean, is such a cool place to be. Sometimes I don't know what the answer is, and I think that's also nice. You just sort of like, you're just there and you're just having a good time, and you have to get from A to B, and sometimes you get to the halfway around the route and you're like, well, I don't really want to do this anymore, and you're like, well, you have to get home somehow, so you just have to keep going, like this idea of keeping going. And we're learning new ones. We're going to Hong Kong soon. I think every time you go on a different terrain as well, you learn something new. And Hong Kong brings big spiders, which
centipedes,
which we're not really big fans of.
Humidity.
Humidity and different things. Yeah, different environments.
Where can people find you?
We are on Instagram only at the moment. We are looking to move to YouTube maybe, but we are London Escape Club, and we are Gemma and
Sandro.
And we hopefully will be moving on to YouTube next year. And yeah, find us on Instagram, DM us, give us a message, say hi. And hopefully we'll be doing some community hikes next year, which will be quite fun. And yeah, who knows what we'll be doing next year. We're kind of coming up with ideas now, so yeah, that's where to find us.
Thank you guys so much for coming on, and to all those listening, please take a minute out of your day and go follow them on their Instagram page. Cheers, guys.
Thanks so much, Matt. It's been awesome. Thank you so much for having us. It's been really fun.
We appreciate it.
If you enjoyed that episode, then we have plenty more to offer you. You interested? From a conversation with Paralympic champion Dimitri Coutier about the power of being active, to incredible wildlife conversations and encounters with Dr. Niall McCann. Find out more by typing in the Maximise Nature Podcast anywhere, and follow on Instagram at Maximise_Nature. That's at Maximise_Nature for a chance not only to catch up on more episodes, but also maximise your midweek. Bye, guys.